What does the threat of a looming recession mean for hiring tech talent locally? Is that even still a thing? Today, we'll talk about that on Culture Builder Live. Hey, I am Chris Wink. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Technically, the news organization with a community of technologists and entrepreneurs. Today, I'm joined by Delali Dzirasa. He is the CEO of Fearless, a digital services firm based in Baltimore, about 250 employees. We've covered them for years. Delali, thanks for being here.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So we called you up because I know you as a guy. I associate you as a guy of hiring technology talent in and around Baltimore, Maryland, DC region. You were well known for some of your government contracting and the like. So I was curious how much that's shifted during the pandemic. What you have to say about both recessionary trends and hiring in and around a tech, a kind of a tech hub. So let's do the thing.
Sure.
Start me off. How has your local hiring strategy changed, if at all, during the last couple of years?
Yeah, so our local hire strategy, we've kind of stayed the course. We still hire a good deal of our folks locally, but we started to expand and we started to look more in other states as well. And so I don't think we've stopped what we've done. We've expanded what we've done. We still got a pretty strong local presence. Of our 250 or so folks, almost 200 still reside in Maryland. And so the bulk of the folks are here within this space. That will grow and that will evolve. But hiring locally is still a big part of our strategy and how we impact local communities.
What is your office situation going to look like? This is obviously the big question.
Yeah. So the office will be hybrid. It'll be hybrid.
Okay.
We're in the process of doing some testing and bringing folks back and what that looks like. What we're thinking through is how do we make it more experiential? And so it's not just come back because we said so to sit next to the person you've been working with remotely for 2 years. But what are those things that you may not have at home, those specialized experiences that we can help to create and cultivate that allow people to come in with their customers or come in with the community to engage in a way that they can't do at home. And so we're working through that process now.
All I hear right now is that why would you ever put a geographic bound on whom you hire? Doesn't that just limit your choice? Is local hiring ever proving to be an advantage?
I think it is, right? I think anytime you have extremes that, you should hire everyone local, you should hire everyone remote, right? There's nothing in between. I think either one of those are a mistake you miss because people aren't just one-sided, right? People are multifaceted. And so, yes, there are people that love working from home and they don't want to ever move from that posture, right? That's all they want to do. But there are many people that they need the connection. They need to come in. They need to interact with their peers. And so you've got to have a space for those folks as well. And so I think, honestly, it's an advantage because most people, and a lot of people that we read about, they're pushing full remote. There's a segment of folks that are looking for something different. And I think we provide that. That's number one. I think number two, part of the Fearless strategy has always been around how do we ensure that we're growing and successful in our customers, our culture, and our community. And so this community angle of how do we support our local pipelines and pathways? How do we support our local tech economy and our meetups? How do we support by throwing various conferences, right, in collaborations and convenings of that community is important because that's what you see every day. I walk out of my house and I interact with the schools that are in my community, the restaurants that are in my community, the students that are in my community. And so the ability to impact there, I feel that in a way that I don't feel what's happening in South Carolina or something that may be happening in Texas. Yes, it's important, but where I live and what I see and I interact with is equally important. So this ability to get people that care about their home to invest in their home makes it much more impactful to think about our local hiring strategy.
So you're 250 or so internal full-time employees, a couple hundred more on the contractor side. You have an aggressive plan to growth. I've known you for years. That's long been your mantra. Are you looking at economic headwinds? What is your next couple of years look like? Are you changing forecasts at all about your expectations for growth?
We're not. For us, we're not chasing growth for the sake of growth. It's impact, right? Fearless, as we continue to grow, I think today we're known as, we're a tech company that uses software to drive impact, right? I think tomorrow, and as we evolve into this next iteration of Fearless, I want us to be known as an impact company, right? How do we grow to be one of the most impactful companies on planet Earth? And for that, so it's not growth for the sake of growth. It's how do we do both, right? We want to grow, we want to be profitable, but we also want to drive impact. And how do we think about doing that? So we're moving pretty fast, right? So we're mostly local, mostly regional based company. We're looking at a pretty aggressive national expansion strategy, and then global from there. Now, how we do that, how we get there is going to be important. I talked about how important that local element is. It's going to be how do we invest in communities and cities across the country and across the world that are impactful, right? Their sense of fearless is part of the DNA. We are part of the fabric of these cities. We're driving impact. We're making change. We're bringing people on and great paying jobs within the economy, right? There's pipelines to schools and universities, right? And we're working on challenges that help to push us as humanity forward. And so for us, we're pretty bullish on the future. Now we're going to be smart about how we do that. We're going to be strategic about the partners that we bring on that are part of our broader ecosystem. But yes, we're growing pretty aggressively.
If you were having lunch or drinks or whatever with a couple other CEOs, let's say a couple other CEOs that had offices in Baltimore and we're thinking about ditching them, or we're actively ditching them, or we're more hiring remotely, do you have any message for them? Like, what do you say over drinks when you hear a couple other CEOs say like, office isn't for me anymore?
Yeah. Again, I don't think it's a one size fits all. I'd say look back at your strategic priorities and plan, right? If it's core to who it is that you are, then you got to keep that an element of what it is that you do, right? And so take a survey, take a poll of your existing employee base, take a poll of your existing customer base, right? And those are inputs that you need. But more importantly, you got to be clear on like, who are you becoming, right? What is the new thing that you're trying to become, and then align to that very fiercely and very, very focused, right? And if that new thing means that there has to be engagement, there has to be this collaboration, there has to be this convening, you need to dream up this future and then make that type of bet on where you think you want the organization to go. Now, if you find within your organization that, hey, we can do it, we just care about productivity, we just care about making sure that we're, especially within technology, we got to build the best widget, and that's fine doing it how we do it, great, then that may work for you. That's not a strategy that will work for us, but again, because the culture piece, in person, as well as the community piece, is such a core part of our pillars that we can't do it without that. But if it works for them, I think that's fine. They just need to be very intentional about it and not just back into it.
This is an aside, but I'm curious what your advice would be for municipal governments around the country, policymakers, economic development leaders who are trying to rethink what their own innovation economy strategy is. We technically cover this a whole lot, as you know well. For years, the economic development strategy of the innovation economy followed a manufacturing or an industrial economic development strategy of the late 20th century, which was, let's go get incentives to grab a company, extract it from somewhere, bring them here, and hope that they will grow employees. It strikes me, even though the majority of companies are still going to have an office footprint, according to any study that I've seen, in tech, it's the rate of fully remote companies has more than tripled, and a class of companies are hiring remotely. So that strikes me as an opportunity that cities have to have a blended strategy. We need the fearlesses of the world that are going to have offices and be tethered here. But man, we just need a really talented workforce. So both Delali can grow locally, and we want those remote companies to come hire locally. Just kind of curious how much you would push or challenge on that, any nuance. What would your advice be if you were sitting with a bunch of economic development folks or policymaker folks from different cities thinking what their innovation economy strategy should look like after the pandemic?
Yeah. No, great question. I think the driver for all of this is really underpinned by talent, right? And so typically, folks would go out and say, how do we get this Fortune X company and get them to relocate to our town, or this big company, they got to relocate to our town because then it's going to create all this economic activity. I think the strategy needs to be looked at to say, how do we get the talent to want to move to our town, right? Mm-hmm. And that talent, again, if a lot of these jobs are going remote, then they can be wherever they want. So how do I make this environment attractive enough that the talent wants to be there? So it's got to be affordable. It's got to have the amenities that they're expecting, right? The schools, right? All these things that folks may want within their work locality, restaurants, or all the things that work, play, live, all those pieces, right? Because if I can work from anywhere, right? Why am I choosing city A versus city B, right? Some it may be because it's close to family, I need help, I got kids. Others may be the cost of living. All those types of things become important. So I would say get the talent first. You get that, and the companies that have a physical presence, they benefit from that experience. But then it doesn't matter if you're remote; they're hiring from your talent base. And so getting the talent base there and making a space that's attractive to them, I think, is the key. Instead of chasing the company, you chase the talent and bring the talent to the market.
One of the open questions in our economy right now is whether their technology in that broad category has moved center enough to our economy that when the tech economy sneezes, the rest of the economy gets a cold.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, how much should we care about the very high profile tech layoffs we are seeing? Is it purely highly leveraged or, um, um, a certain class of company that is distinct to its industry, or will that have implications for the rest of the economy? So, question I have for you is, all of these high profile big tech layoffs, does that spook you or is that an opportunity for you?
It doesn't spook me. It's an opportunity for us. So now, it makes our hiring, I think, maybe a little bit easier, right? And really
Mm.
twofold. Number one, there's an enormous amount of talent that is out on the market right now, right? That are looking for new opportunities and new engagements, right? And so those are people that can potentially recruit within our pipelines. The second thing is, all of what we've talked about, right, since our inception, and what we stand for is this idea of building software with a soul, right? This idea that good software should power things that matter, and these missions that are so important, right? You think about healthcare and education and social justice and all these like really, really, really meaty issues. Its ability to get people to think about how to use their technical superpowers in a different way than they considered before, right? And so it's an ability to introduce them to, again, not just government work, but again, this very, very focused mission-based work that, yes, you can do well, you can make money, right? You can use your superpowers, but man, you could change the world, right? You can change them in very profound ways in which you hadn't thought about, that affect you every single day, right? Affect your neighbors every single day, whether it's from a local perspective or state or from a federal perspective. And so I think it's a really great opportunity for our business and those in our business in general to say, hey, come think about a different way that you can affect change.
I'm going to lose you here in a minute. So a couple lightning round questions. If you're mayor of Baltimore, what's one of your top priorities?
For me, I'm always going to hedge on digital services and small businesses, right? So how do we make sure that the resident and the citizen focused experience works and it is seamless right across the board, right? I mean, it's interesting, right? We see, I mean, our Netflix spinner spins for half a second too long. We're ready to flip tables, right? Like, because we're at home, we want to watch TV. But the ability for us to interact with our government is increasingly becoming more and more digital, and we expect that from every part of our life. And so that ability for it to be seamless and effective and very user-driven experience is going to be super important. So I'd say there's got to be a focus on technology and how to leverage it to better service the constituents of the city.
How bad is this recession going to be? Are we going to have a recession, or have we talked it to death and it's already gone?
Yeah, I think a lot of signs are pointing to it's coming. I think a lot of the speculation may be cause people to freak out, right? And we may trigger some things as a result. But I think signs are pointing to that, right? So you see a lot of people talking about, tighten the belt, stockpile cash right now, just in case. I mean, so those things happen, but I think ultimately, when we think about our business, there's still an objective and a goal, right? In the mission of your organization, right? You've got to be bullish, like, towards getting that, right? There's going to be bumps and bruises and ups and downs and roller coasters anytime that you're dealing with an organization and business. But you got to be smart. You got to be creative. How do I then ensure that we're positioned for success long term, but also kind of being smart and mitigating some of the things that we might see coming on the market? So we're trying to straddle that and do that well within our organization.
Delali, I gotta let you go. Always a pleasure to have the conversation. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. That's Delali Dzirasa of Fearless. We will see you next week. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.